Hello, everyone. This is our research critique on the psychological impact of injury, effects of prior sport and exercise involvement.
And this is Jaeman Chung.
And then I'm Karlie Jones.
I'm Nathan Fitzpatrick, and Dr. Hosung So was our leading supervisor on this research critique at California State University, San Bernardino.
Okay, for our introduction, we found out that injuries may risk the well-known psychological advantages of exercise. This results in negative effects such as worry, sadness, and even sometimes depression. The separation of athletes with their injury versus their sport can create different negative psychological effects. This research believes that since sports are involved, athletes can develop more of psychological damage from injury over the average person, meaning that when you're involved in a sport, like basically you take your injuries worse than the common person, and it's mainly just your head telling you that it's worse. This quantitative research that compared injured and non-injured athletes found that wounded athletes experience higher rates of low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. Okay, and then our purpose of this study was aimed to measure the psychological effects of people involved with sport and exercise and determine if there is a positive or negative rehabilitation experience and if it played a role in their psychological impacts through injury. A sports-related injury is known not to affect just the body, but have psychological effects on the mental well-being of an athlete. Athletes tend to create mental blocks for themselves, such as fear of re-injury, a pessimistic outlook, everyday stressors, or maybe even an all-or-nothing attitude. And I think this has to do with their devotion towards their sport. They create these blocks because if it's an average person performing these sports activities, they feel like they don't have that much to lose rather than an athlete. Okay.
Methods of this study. This study used a large sample size of 93 adults, 55 of them being males and 38 females, so all ages between 18 to 60. They were all regularly active with approximately 5.5 hours of sport per week before the injury, and then after their injury, they were out 3 weeks before they could participate in the study, which mainly included a couple questionnaires. They had the exact same questionnaire that would rate the severity of their injury at the beginning of the rehabilitation process, the middle, and at the end. Physiotherapists also had some questionnaires about this and about their perception of these athletes. There was also a visual analog scale for the 6 mood states, which you'll see next. And over 70 hospitals and over 100 physiotherapists were involved in the study that helped out in giving the questionnaires or the rehabilitation process altogether. And with these results, there were changes over time that were shown to be significant, that as rehab continued, some of these moods and emotions, anger, anxiety, confusion, depression, and fatigue declined, which was good, but as well as self-rated energy and recovery increased. And there was a negative relationship between the age and weekly time spent exercising. So there was younger people seemed to be affected more psychologically in the study since they were hurt rather than the older people. And some of that kind of might have just been some experience and maturity. And as the older people that have been injured before have seen this type of thing before. And then with the high and low quartiles, the highest quartiles of range or of exercise were about 8 hours per week, which was around 32 years old. So a lot of the younger, early 30s athletes exercise for quite a bit per week, while a few of the older individuals that average around 43 to 44 years old spent only a maximum of about 1 hour per week. So they weren't as active as the others, but overall that mean was about 5.5 hours per week of exercise. And the high quartiles feel more confusion than the lowest quartile.
Based on the study, confusion and recovery have a relationship with the number of hours spent participating in sports and exercise before the injury. More frequently than others, people who participate in sports or exercise, usually younger age participants, they are more influenced psychologically. The significant aspect is that participants' psychological impact of injury generally appears around 80% recovery station. Moreover, people who participated in sports before injury were more confused in the middle and end of rehabilitation and perceived their recovery to be less by the time they completed formal rehabilitation. This psychological aspect can explain why active sports participants or professional sports players stress that their physical ability peaked before the injury. Although this study is well presented and identified the age-time relationship, it is more comprehensive than our earlier studies related to injured athletes. This study does not uncover various aspects with an assumption that represent all variables are not changed. For example, people who participate in a lot of sports and exercise may need additional knowledge about other activities to help them maintain their aerobic fitness. In this case, delivering practical physical program information may increase the expectation of full recovery. However, the only positive psychological aspect considered in this study is energy. It is also got criticized for the current failure to uncover extensive connection between the emotional impact of injury and athletic status as precedent. POMS is a psychological rating scale used to assessing transient distinct mood state with 6 subscales of anxiety, anger, depression, confusion, energy, and fatigue that are dealt with in this study. On the other hand, PANAS is a scale consisting of different words that describe feelings and emotion that simultaneously measure positive and negative effect. Several scientists criticizes that the POMS may not fully capture the mood state and that the PANAS scale would be a better fit for future quantitative research. Other critique would be that several studies have revealed that sports injury rehabilitation professionals would want their professional training to focus on psychological elements. In other words, if specific personal characteristics such as impatience, calmness, or resistance are used, the result may be look meaningless. Lastly, as with any quantitative analysis, this study might be critiqued for creating a fragmented and confining picture of the injury experience. More qualitative research is needed to incorporate the injured athlete's subjective experience for better investigation. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, contact us our email. Thank you.